Terry Knickerbocker, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's my pleasure.
I appreciate you coming and sitting down talking to me.
Thank you. It's nice to be in person.
Yeah, I know. You were telling me that you haven't done an in-person interview
No,
in a while.
I've done so many podcasts on Zoom, and they work with people in parts of the world that I'm not going to travel to. But I'm in Brooklyn. You're in Manhattan. That's easy.
Yeah. It's been cool. So you are. Let's start at the very, very beginning. You are a New Yorker, right? Born and raised here in New York.
Born and raised. My family lived in Brooklyn. I had a Manhattan hospital because my mother didn't think the hospitals in Brooklyn were good enough, I guess, back then. And then at the age of 7, my father got a job in Massachusetts, and we moved to the Boston area. Mm-hmm. So I spent 7 to 20-ish up there with a grandfather and family still in New York. So my mother, we're New Yorkers,
mm-hmm.
And then I came down here for NYU and haven't left,
Nice. And NYU, when did you decide that you wanted to, because you started off as an actor, right? When did you decide you wanted to get into acting? Was there something about, I think I read somewhere that both your parents were lawyers or something?
Yeah, oh my God, the research, It's all on the internet. Both my parents were attorneys. They met in law school.
Uh-huh.
My mom's still kicking. My dad died in 2010. But lucky for me, they loved culture and took me, and then eventually my sister, who's 5 years younger than me, to theater, to concerts especially. There was a lot of classical music. We had a lovely grand piano in the house.
Nice.
And so I was exposed to acting very early on and then gravitated to it. I think my dad used to carry around in his wallet some picture of me like at the age of 6 in some costume. And I enjoyed it.
And then you decided, what made you decide to go to NYU out of all the...
So I was doing acting in grade school and high school. I don't think I was amazing, but I enjoyed it a lot. And then I wasn't really all that interested in college. I was smoking a lot of weed back then, but my parents believed that the route was through academia, and my dad, in addition to working at this company, also taught law at BU. And so when it turned out I never even applied to college, even though I told them I had.
Okay. Did they find out?
Yeah, because I didn't get any letters one way or the other. He said, "Well, I'm going to make a few phone calls," and got me into BU. As a liberal arts person, not as an actor.
Oh, okay.
And more shenanigans on my part. So I was a French major at BU. I didn't really think that acting would be my life. Mm-hmm. I like to speak French, and those are musicals. So, again, due to my father's influence. So I like the sound of an accent, which now we would say would be like a dialect. I'm into those. So I went to all my classes for their first meeting and then never went back again because I saw an audition notice for they had extracurricular theater.
Yeah.
They had a theater school, but that was a separate school of the arts. So I just got into that stuff, and then BU kicked me out after a year because I didn't go to classes.
Wow.
Yeah, you can't be enrolled in school and not go to classes. They will say goodbye. And my parents didn't know about that. Well, they were not happy about that. Yeah, because they spent a lot of money.
Yeah.
Not a lot by today's standards, but a lot. And so then I just got a job, worked in a record store, and auditioned for stuff, mostly musical theater and operetta. There's a huge, weird Gilbert and Sullivan subculture in the Boston, Cambridge area.
Huh.
Like, HMS Pinafore, Pirates of Penzance, Patience, all that stuff. And so I got into that crowd, and that was fun. And I could sing. I was a good singer. Mm-hmm. And I was acting, sort of. I mean, I everything I auditioned for, I got into.
Wow.
But I can't say that I was any good, And I think that's what ultimately sent me to, oh, shit, I love this. I was doing it for 3 or 4 years. but I don't quite know what I'm doing. I'm winging it.
Yeah.
And so I auditioned to only one place, NYU, and I got in to their undergrad program.
It's a really difficult school to get into.
It was maybe a little easier back then on the academic side, because God knows I didn't have the grades. But yes, I did have to audition. I took a train down I did some poems. It was weird. I had gotten this person, I'd done Stephen Sondheim musical called A Little Night Music, which is based on an Ingmar Bergman film, very obscure thing, but it's where Send in the Clowns comes from, if you know that song.
I don't know.
It's a song like every jazz singers like that song.
Okay.
And I was the lead in that. And my co-star, who played my girlfriend in it, my long-lost love, was a real actor. She knew what she was doing. And so she coached me and she said, let's pick these poems. That'd be interesting. Like, you don't audition for acting school with poems, but I did. I didn't know any better.
So you acted a poem?
I acted a poem, yeah. I know she coached me in it. It was weird. I don't know what I did, but they accepted me.
Was it just one audition? Because I'm not quite, I think
one audition. It's not the grad school. It's the undergrad.
The undergrad.
For grad school, there are a couple rounds.
Yeah.
And got in. And they did then what they still do, which is they had relationships with a bunch of studios, like Stella Adler, Lee Strasberg. Circle in the Square was affiliated with them at the time. And they just put you where they think they're going to put you. And you don't really have much choice in the matter. So they put me in Circle in the Square. And that's where the acting training started. And I had some incredible teachers there. And then ultimately transferred to the experimental theater wing at NYU and finished my time there.
And do you teach there?
I did teach there for almost 30 years.
Wow.
Maybe a little bit more, and left there. I started my studio in 2015. I was teaching at another studio. The man who was my teacher, Bill Esper, had a studio, and I taught there for a long time, and then ultimately decided to start my own. And running a business is very absorbing, and I had a son who I wasn't ever seeing, and so I wanted to see him, and so I decided to plan an exit from NYU and ultimately left there in like 2018, 2019. Yeah.
So you only started your acting thing in your own studio in 2015?
I started my studio in 2015, but I'd been teaching with Bill for 25 years, from 1990 to 2015.
So yeah, I'm curious to know how you met Bill Esper and how did you just start to work with him, because you know the Esper Studio is still
absolutely
around, still a good school.
It's a great place. So I graduated from NYU and was working with Anne Bogart. If you know her, she founded the CT Company, wonderful experimental director, and she was incredible. And also with an Israeli director named Rina Yerushalmi. These were both my teachers at NYU. Rina had a relationship with La Mama, which is very close here on East 4th Street.
Theater,
So I joined her company. We did some shows there. And I was living the life. I was making some money down. I never actually thought I'd ever have to go above 14th Street. I was a true experimental actor.
Yeah.
That's the kind of work I loved. And which, if I'd been thoughtful about it, I would have, I was never going to make any money doing that. But artistically, it was very satisfying.
Can you talk a little bit about what experimental theater really is?
Well, do you swear on this podcast?
Oh, yeah, you can
swear. Yeah. Oh, you're asking him. Weird shit, right?
Okay.
So postmodern theater, not necessarily traditional Tennessee Williams, Arthur Miller, stuff like August Wilson. So people like Robert Wilson, the stuff you'd see at BAM,
Got it.
we could call experimental theater. And people like Richard Foreman and like Willem Dafoe started at the Wooster Group. That's experimental theater. He still goes back to the Wooster Group. So it's non-traditional theater, maybe even not even taking place in a theater.
Got it.
Like Anne Bogart used to do, she thought of theater as a journey. And so she would literally, around here on Avenue B, she'd have an audience meet. There was a restaurant on Avenue A and 7th Street called Odessa, and the audience would meet there. Like you'd have a ticket that says you're going there, and then there would be a guide. and the guide would say, come on. And she would have staged different scenes in different apartments, and that you'd go up to an apartment and you'd see a scene, and then she'd say, a little bit like Sleep No More.
Yeah. I really enjoyed Sleep No More.
Yeah.
I went and saw that. That was actually really, really cool. Getting to run up the stairs and
choose your own adventure and all that.
Yeah, that was really, really cool.
They don't pay the actors very well.
At the Sleep No More?
No, they're not equity. So so I have some issues with that, but it's fun and it's inventive. Yeah.
So you decided to leave NYU and start your own studio in 2015.
I just want to say, you asked me how I met Bill Esper, so I want to talk about that real quick. So Rena had a class. I was working in her company, but then when we were between gigs, we would go and have the scene study class on Avenue A and 7th Street at what's now a restaurant, but back then it was called University of the Streets, and we'd rent some space there. And so one week I was doing a scene from a Brecht play, and it went really well. I was like, great. And I said, okay, move on to the next scene. The next scene was Eugene O'Neill's Morning Becomes Electra. O'Neill is like deep stuff. Like that's Long Day's Journey into Night. And it was a scene between a brother and a sister with the corpse of the father, like the dead body in the living room.
Morning Becomes Electra is one of the three, right? It's the follow up to Long Day's Journey, isn't it?
I don't think so. I'm not sure it's related to it. It's just kind of just cataclysmic. It could be.
He did one where it's like after, I forget which play that was, but it's after like Long Days.
I don't think it's that one. And I think I'm just traumatized by what happened, right? Which was, in my brain, I knew that this scene called for massive emotion. But I didn't have a GPS for how to get to it inside myself. And that really frightened me, that one week I could be doing good work, and the next week I'd be there like, what am I doing? That wasn't the kind of actor I wanted to be. And around that time, I saw a wonderful actor at La Mama, and I was working backstage, named Joel Rooks. And he was the lead in this show, and every night he just like crushed it. Like an Olympic gymnast, like Michael Jordan, like just the kind of acting. But not only was it great acting, but it was consistent acting.
Night in and night out.
Yeah, like Jalen Brunson right now playing for the Knicks, just like hardcore stuff.
Yeah.
I was like, I want to do that. I said, hey man, how'd you do that? And he said, well, I trained with this guy, Bill Esper, in the Meisner technique. And I went and met with Bill. It was another 2 years. I'd already spent 4 at NYU. I didn't think twice because I just wanted to get good.
Yeah.
And I was a little arrogant, I think, maybe. And I said to Bill, we had a good conversation. I said, so as a graduate of NYU, where will you put me in your program? I didn't know what the Meisner technique was really about. He said, at the beginning. But as a graduate of NYU, Bill, he said, what are you, deaf?
Yeah.
At the beginning, NYU is good. You got in. That means something's cooking. But everybody starts at the beginning because we don't know where the holes are in the actor. So you could have no experience and do the Meisner technique, and you could have a lot of experience. And what I now realize, which I didn't then, Meisner had been a pianist, Sanford Meisner. And he was a colleague of Lee Strasberg's, and he was a colleague of Stella Adler's in the group theater. But I think, I never asked him, but I think he was trying to figure, like, pianists begin at the beginning, like with scales and arpeggios, and dancers begin at the beginning with first position, second position, plie. You don't start piano lessons with Beethoven.
Right.
But my first class at NYU was scene study, which is very typical.
Yeah.
Right? Streetcar Named Desire with Nikos Sakaropoulos, who founded Williamstown Theater Festival. This was like a god. But that teaches you how to do that scene. It doesn't teach you how to do the next scene or the new play.
That's a really good point.
And it's profound, right? Like me understanding that. So that's how I met Bill, changed my life in every way. And he was a magnificent teacher. And he'd spent 15 years with Meisner and really was a very pure deliverer of Sandy's work, but in his own personality, which was great. And I learned so much from Bill. And then he took me on to train me to teach. So I have everything to be thankful for because of Bill.
Wow. Yeah. And I find it fascinating when you say that one day you can do a scene and the next day, because I've trained for the better part of maybe 10, 15 years now in various places, and you'll come to class some days and you'll see somebody go up and do an incredible scene. And then they'll put up another scene and you're like, is that the same actor? Why do you think that is? Do you know?
I think it's because they don't have a solid toolkit. Mm. They don't have a technique. They have talent.
Right.
Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to do that great scene. Mm-hmm. But they don't have a reliable, this is my guess, I don't know.
Yeah.
But they don't have a reliable process that says, you give me a script, any script, and I know how to turn that script into behavior. Because that's what we make as actors. We make behavior that's truthful, that's alive, that honors the writer. So I'm telling the writer's story, but also honors me as an artist, meaning has my ideas, and that I like, that's interesting for me, not for the audience. They don't have a process that's foundational, right? That's my guess. That's what the Meisner technique gave me. And I don't know of any other approach to the training of actors that accomplishes that.
Can we talk about the Meisner technique a little bit and how I did a little bit of Meisner when I first moved to LA. There was a teacher out in LA called Iris Klein, I think her name was, and she had a class, and then I did Meisner somewhere else. I actually had a really interesting experience in a Meisner class. I was doing a scene from, I think it was Carlito's Way, the movie. And it's the scene where Sean Penn is laying in the hospital bed and Al Pacino walks in and, he finds out that something had happened. They betrayed him or something like that. And Al Pacino comes in and I think takes the bullets out of the gun. I don't know. There's some interesting scene in that movie and then Al Pacino leaves and then they come in and I guess kill Sean Penn or whatever it was happens. We're working on the scene, and I don't know anything about Meisner. The only thing that I had learned was we were doing the repetition exercises. So that's what kind of we had started on. I was coming in, we were starting the scene, but it wasn't going very well. And so my teacher comes outside. I'm in the hallway, and he's like, I want you to go inside, and I want you to go after him the second you walk in the door. Run after him. I'm like, what? He's like, run after him, and if you get your hands on him, I want you to beat the shit out of him. I was like, what? He was like, you're going to run in this class and you're going to go after him. And if you get your hands on him, I want you to beat the crap out of him. I was like, what the fuck is going on? He goes inside class. He tells the other student, he's like, Mershad's going to come in here and he's going to come after you. And if he gets his hands on you, he's going to beat the crap out of you. And so
it became a chase scene.
So it became a thing. And I went in and I went after him, Yes. He ran into the audience. Yes. I jumped into the audience. Yes. I threw a table out of the way. Yes. I was trying to get him. And then he said, start the scene. And I was like, hello, Dave. And we were just like, but we were like,
yes, alive.
We were right in it. And when we started the scene, I was like, holy crap. Something happened in me in that moment. I think it was the first. Now, I don't know if that was something that he was supposed to do or whatever, but it did teach me something. It taught me it taught me for the very first time that acting was more than just getting up and saying some lines.
Totally.
That there was a lot more that was required of you.
I'm getting excited by that. It sounds really, really juicy. And what I'm hearing is like this maximum commitment on both your part and the other actor's part, which is, of course, what you want when you act.
But it was very, very interesting. Yeah, the repetition thing. Can you explain to it, because a lot of people probably would like to know a little bit. Now, the repetition is somebody says a line and then you repeat.
They don't say
the
a line. People associate. I want to say a couple things about Meisner. I'm very orthodox in my taste around Meisner, and you can go on YouTube and look up Meisner teachers, Meisner exercises, and most of what I see is horrifying to me. And again, as I said before we started, you don't need a license to teach acting. So anyone can call themselves an acting teacher. That's a crime to me. And anyone can call themselves a Meisner teacher. There's no certification system for it as there is in like certain yoga traditions or other things like Alexander technique. You can't really call yourself an Alexander teacher because they have a certifying body. There is no certifying body for the Meisner technique. So maybe someone took a Meisner class from somebody, not necessarily a branch off the tree. Or maybe they read Meisner's book or Bill Esper's book or whatever. So there's a lot of really bad teaching in all acting realms. You know, what you talked to me about before with that other teacher in LA. Like, it's a very tender thing to be an acting teacher because people are really bearing their souls in very open and vulnerable ways, and they're so sensitive. And if the acting teacher isn't skillful or isn't grounded or knows who they are or has other weird agendas, like they want someone to be their disciple or who knows what, messy things can happen that can be damaging to the actor. So I'll just say that up front. The Meisner technique to me, and I studied with Bill Esper for 2 years and then trained with him for many, many years after to teach. So there's very few people who are trained to teach. Meisner would train people to teach, and then my teacher taught. So I'm kind of Meisner's grandson, and I'm so proud of that because I feel really good about how solid the work is, and I'm not confused by it, and I had great ancestors. A lot of people think that the Meisner technique is repetition. That is the baby first step of it, but it's fundamental in one aspect of acting. The Meisner technique, the repetition exercise will not teach you how to do a role. What it trains you in is how to really improvise moment to moment, unanticipated moment, which is great for film and TV because then you can have take after take after take, and it always feels like you're really with your partner. So if I were to start it out with you, you said start out with a line, but not a line from some play, but actually something that exists right here and now at 96 Avenue B. So I'd say, you have a beard. And then you'd say back to me what I said to you.
You have a beard.
Right. And then, so you did repeat me. The definition of acting, according to Meisner, is acting is the ability to live truthfully under imaginary circumstances. And then we kind of amend that and say it's about the ability to do truthfully under imaginary circumstances. So the foundation of the work is truth. So if I say to you, you have a beard, and you say back to me,
you have a beard.
You've repeated me beautifully, but we have a problem. Which is that I don't have a beard.
Right.
So we're untruthful. So then we adjust it always to keep our answer honest, which means I'm going to change the pronoun, and you're going to say back to me, I have a beard. You're going to say that. I have a beard, yeah. Yes, you have a beard.
I have a beard.
You have a beard.
I have a beard.
You have a beard. Now, this doesn't seem that interesting, but it's got some seeds in it that are so useful because I have to really be with you. Like, I'm sure you and people listening have had conversations when they're not really listening.
Right.
Like maybe on a bad first date. When someone's saying, yes, I have a very interesting potato chip collection. I'd like to show it to you sometime. And they're like, oh, it's interesting, man. A potato chip. Oh, heck, I just got to, oh, goodness gracious. I just got to, and they're not there. So it really invites you and almost demands of you that you really be present and in the moment and really listen, and also in a very open way allow yourself for the other person to affect you, which means you start to react. And that little, you have a beard, I have a beard, could get very silly, or you might get bored, or I might get bored, or I might find you annoying. And it's all just about how can we really be in touch with each other and ourselves as we improvise. That skill, which is at the foundation of it, when you bring that into a play or a TV script or a film, is golden. because it means no matter what's going on, even if I'm in character, that story you just told me about Carlito's Way, like you were with each other because as you were running after him, he saw you coming after him. That was improvisation.
Yeah.
Without text necessarily, but you were in it, you were with each other. If you zigged, he had to zag and vice versa. That's kind of what we want to do as opposed to being in a scene. I did some show and the series regular there, like they came late, they didn't know their lines, and they weren't really with me, right? And that was annoying, you know, when I did the best I could, but like, it's so nice when you have an actor who's like there. And then it goes on to get into what we would call crafting and start to work with imaginary circumstances and starting to do things, going back to how come that some guy could be great one day and not great another day in a class. How do we start to arrange for consistent behavior? How can it be that I can do 8 shows a week and they'll all be a little bit different,
right?
But they'll basically be solid. And they'll be solid because I've organized the doings that I'm working on, whatever that is. I'm explaining something to you now. I might be threatening someone. I might be taking in the bad news or whatever it is I'm doing. If I've really organized that, that's my roadmap. And I have a character, which is informed by the script that I've created for myself, which is a version of me. Robert Duvall would say that character acting is you bent, right? Like, which is lovely. It's like a kaleidoscope.
Yeah,
I'm
nice.
dialing up, you know, if I'm playing Laura in a glass menagerie, that would be weird if I played it, but if a woman were playing that part, well, that's a very insecure, low self-esteem young lady. If the actress playing that part is like bold and brassy, you can't make Laura bold and brassy. So they'd have to dial up and dial down different parts of themselves that understand that. So by working on this crafting thing, I start to go, oh, I want to create the behavior of, we start with struggle by doing something difficult. Well, let me see if I can organize that. And then maybe it might be the behavior of fun. Well, what can I do? So I'm not just there like, I'm going to be having fun because what am I going to do? I have a water bottle here. How am I going to have fun? Right? Robin Williams could probably have fun with this, but that for me, I need some more stuff. So once I learn how to do that consistently, that translates, plus this being with you, into something really rich.
Yeah, and when you say crafting the behavior, are you going scene by scene and
moment by moment, ultimately?
Yeah.
I mean, I want the big picture, like what's the journey? Like if you're talking about a leading role, like we haven't talked about it yet, but I do a lot of coaching of some really great actors. And right now I'm working with Daniel Craig on Knives Out 3.
Wow. I saw him do Iago.
He's a brilliant guy.
David Oyelowo. It was a wonderful play. I stood outside in the freezing cold for 3 hours to get a ticket to that thing. And me and my friend were the first people. We lined up, and it was New Year's Eve, but it was during the day. So it was the morning of New Year's Eve, December 31st. And it was horribly freezing outside. And we kept taking turns going inside to warm up and come back, and then we finally got a ticket.
You wanted it.
Yeah.
I hope it was worth it.
It was great.
Yeah.
They did this thing where they broke into Drake's Hotline Bling. Like it was. I loved it. I thought it was really, really sensational. Daniel was just, the scene in Othello where they win the battle and all the troops are like, they're having a thing. And he's just walking casually, and then he goes, you used to call me on my cell phone. He just starts singing it.
That's funny.
And I'm just like, what the hell
Shakespeare
is going on?
You'd probably enjoy that.
But yeah, no, it was really, really wonderful. Yeah, no, he's a sensational actor.
He's a great actor, and he's really thoughtful, and he's super smart, and I really enjoy working with him, and he trusts me, which I've earned, I hope. But we'll look at like what's the overall arc. And what are the relationships? What are the key relationships? Because, every project, the imaginary world is about circumstances and relationships. And then we'll go scene by scene, moment by moment, and try to carve out something that's precise and fun and that they like. Yeah.
Yeah, relationships. I have an acting teacher that says relationships to people, places, objects, and events.
That's Larry Moss.
Yeah, Larry. Yeah. But I like that because that one sentence solves so many problems.
Yes.
Just that one.
If you do the work.
Yeah. Like you're like, oh wait. And then you're like, oh wait, well, what's my relationship? And I saw something really beautiful. I was in LA and I was watching a scene. And there was this actress who was so good, and she was playing an alcoholic. And she was drunk in the scene, and they were getting into a fight, and she had a bottle of alcohol in her head, and she was holding this bottle of alcohol. And the other actor went to take it from her, and she would not let go of this bottle. And he was dragging her on the ground, and and it wasn't in the scene for her to hold on to the bottle, but she knew, I will die without this.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking to myself, that's the relationship to that.
Totally.
To the object, which is, for an alcoholic, it's everything.
Absolutely.
And I remember watching that I learned a huge lesson that day. I was like, man, that's incredible just to even think about that. Just build a relationship like that to an object.
Yeah. Larry, I love Larry. We're a good friend. We had dinner a couple of weeks ago. And I saw he was your guest on this podcast. So, and I think he was your last episode.
He was.
Yeah. So I'm honored to be in a chair warmed up by Larry Moss.
I've been training with Larry for many, many years.
Yeah, he's my brother from another mother, and we share a lot of values. And I teach a similar workshop to like the 4-day thing. And I was just in Atlanta last week, and just what you're reminding me of this, addicts and their relationship. Well, one thing Larry says, I'm sure you've heard, is that you really got to get familiar with your props, because props' mission in life is to destroy your performance.
It's just props want to kill actors.
Yeah, they do. They want to sabotage you. And that's really true. You see actors kind of go, oh yeah, I'll know what to do. It's like, no, you need time with that prop. But
yes.
We did a scene from a play by Leslie Headland called Bachelorette down in Atlanta. I didn't choose it. They did. And it's about a bachelorette party, and there's a woman who's Regan, who's very buttoned up and very in control, and everything's good, but it turns out she's addicted to pills. And at one point, when the shit's really hitting the fan, the other actor who she's in conflict with, and Regan's very, in terms of status, like she's the queen and she's treating everyone like her servant, including her friend. And then her friend finds the pills and spills the pills on the ground. Oof. And all of a sudden Regan's like quivering and begging them. And then the actor grinds the pills into the ground. Oof. And it's torture for that actress, for that character. And this actor really went from being queen to like groveling.
Yeah.
It was great. Yeah. And then I'm thinking about Motherfucker with the Hat, the Gerges play. And in the first scene.
I've just worked on that.
So good.
Very recently.
Did you do the first scene?
I did.
Yeah. So when she says, what are you doing? Because he picks up the bottle. That's powerful.
Yeah, it is.
His relationship to this fork in the road, like what do I have to live for? Ronnie, you've ruined my life. And just the poignancy. And I saw the original production, Bobby Cannavale and Elizabeth Rodriguez and Yul Vasquez.
Yeah, Elizabeth Rodriguez. I went to the Lincoln Center Library and watched it a couple of weeks ago because I was working on the top of that scene. The top of the scene is difficult, both for the female character, for Veronica. The phone call is particularly
with her mother.
Yeah. The phone call needs a lot of. I didn't work on it, but it's a great phone call, but it's also difficult.
Tricky.
It's tricky. It's very tricky.
You have to be actually the mother's mother, but you also have to work out this cleaning stuff and cocaine.
And listen.
Yeah.
And the listening part on that.
Elizabeth studied the Meisner technique with Maggie Flanagan. She's a good friend. She's an actress. She's wonderful.
Oh yeah. I saw, what else did I see? I think, was she in?
Powerful.
She was in the last Gerges play, which was Halfway
Bitches Go to Hell.
Yeah.
She's the real deal.
I was actually going to talk about a little bit about the people that you do coach. And one of them is Mr. Sam Rockwell, who I love.
Well, I was thinking of Sam just now because Sam and Elizabeth Sam's been a longtime member of the Labyrinth Theater, which Girgis and Phil Hoffman and Yul Vasquez, have been members of, and Yul's another good friend. He played Uncle Julio in that original production of Motherfucker with a Hat. And so it's hard to have a theater company in New York because stuff costs money and the theater pays you in hugs. And they've got it's true. So Sam and Elizabeth did a benefit of Danny in the Deep Blue Sea.
Ooh.
And Sam played Danny and Elizabeth played the other woman, Roberta. And so when we were talking about Elizabeth, they were like, yeah, I think that was one of the first times I met Elizabeth was when we were working on that. I was sort of directing them in that. Yeah. What about Sam?
How'd you get to work with him?
Yeah. So all roads lead to Bill Esper in a way. I was training to teach, and that summer, Sam was in his early 20s, and Yul Vasquez, and he came to do the main Meisner training is a 2-year training, but they also have this 6-week summer intensive. It's like the first 18 classes of a 128 class thing. It's a taste of it, a strong taste. And so Sam was a working actor at the time, had done Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. He'd done a couple other things. He was doing commercials. His mother and his father were both actors, so we grew up acting.
Nice. In
New York and San Francisco. And so I guess his agent said, yeah, go study with this guy. And so he came to try it. And I met Sam there, and Yul had been a rock star. He had a band. He was an incredible, handsome Cuban guy and a really good guitarist. He had a band called Diving for Pearls. And Yul was in that class, and I was observing that class as part of my training. And so I got to know both of them, and they became best friends out of that. And then both decided, as many people do, when they get the 6 weeks, they go, oh man, I want more of this. I can't stop here. And they both signed up for Bill's 2-year program. And Sam's first year, Bill happened to have a lot of outside duties outside the studio, more than usual. So I was teaching for him. So I started to teach Sam in that class. And then I remember an activity he did where he was doing something from Mean Streets. Sam really loves De Niro and Keitel and all those guys and Scorsese. And I was like, wow, this guy's got something. There's something really alive and interesting and different about him. And then he would start to say, well, I've got some auditions. Can we work on it? And then you get some parts, and we started coaching. So that was 34 years ago.
Wow.
And I think we've done 120 movies and 3 Broadway plays and a couple other plays. And
I always find it interesting, somebody like him the actor's still getting coaching, which I love. I think you need it now. Yeah. There's no rehearsal.
Yeah. Daniel Craig, I'm not teaching Daniel Craig how to act. I have a teaching practice. I have a studio in Brooklyn. And if you want to learn how to act, or in my case, relearn how to act in a way that's really solid, that's what that place is for. And then I have this other part of my professional life where I coach actors usually on roles that they already have. Because, sorry to the directors listening to this, but most theater and film directors are really good, not theater directors, film and TV directors, are really good at the technical stuff,
right?
But don't really understand an actor's vocabulary, an actor's process, and they almost don't need to get into it if you know what you're doing. Yeah. And you're not going to have any rehearsal. You might have a table read and a camera blocking rehearsal, but you're not going to sit around for a couple weeks and work on a movie the way they did in the old days. So you kind of have to show up on set loaded, ready to go. And it's useful to have someone to help you with that.
Yeah, I feel like I've been working a little bit this year, and the directors
Congratulations.
Don't really, thank you. Yeah, directors don't really say much.
That's good.
Oh, it's good.
I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah. I mean, it just I never really saw too, but I got to be on set and see some incredible scenes, and it was really amazing to me. Without like, I just recently was in this show coming out. I think it's coming out in October. It's called The Penguin with Colin Farrell. He plays the Penguin.
Nice.
And I got to see him and Clancy Brown, and Clancy's been in everything. And it was just like a master class of just being there and watching them. They had these incredible scenes where they're fighting each other, but also like all these menacing things, and just getting to sit there and watch them. And we just show up, and within 5 minutes of being on set, they were saying rolling in action, and they didn't have any rehearsals, and they were just both sensational.
That you know of. They might have gotten together on their own.
I don't think they did, because I think I asked, yeah.
Interesting.
But I always find it fascinating, and how little amount, and also how much the actors, Colin would dictate how some of the scenes would go. Like they would say, look, we're going to do it like this. You'd be like, nah, I don't think it should go like that. It should go like this or whatever. And I was like, oh, wow. I didn't even know an actor could do that.
When you're number one on the call sheet.
Yeah, you're pretty much.
And maybe you're an executive producer. Who knows? There's the power structure shifts around. Is it a TV show?
Yeah.
So they probably have different directors for different episodes. Yeah. So the continuity is in the showrunner and in the actors and the series regulars. So.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really cool to watch all these really wonderful actors work up close.
That's great.
Very, very nice. Do you have any criteria for if an actor wants to work with you? Do you or how do you decide to work with an actor? Like if somebody wants to come to you to
sure. Well, to coach or to train? Both. I have criteria for both.
Okay. Yeah, for both. Let's hear both.
The coaching thing is pretty self-selecting.
Okay.
Because, and I'm not as expensive as Larry Moss, but I'm expensive.
Yeah.
And so that, I mean, unless you have like, unlimited income and just like to throw money around, that can be a hurdle because they're definitely cheaper coaches than me. And people should, I have no interest in having starving actors starve anymore.
Yeah.
Right. But I do feel good about the work I do, and I think I can help people. So primarily I'm working in the coaching realm with people who have already gotten a part and have leading roles. So they would, it's almost, I don't advertise that, so it's just word of mouth, and people reach out to me. I have a name on the internet. You can find me, and they write, and I have an assistant who lets them know what I charge, and and we find out what the scope of the project is, and either we'll do something or we won't do something. But I'm happy to work with anybody who wants to come along and do that, as long as we can work together, and usually it works out. For my school, a lot of acting schools, you can just sort of sign up for a class on their website and just give them your credit card. The tagline for my acting school my studio is, it's a conservatory. It's really meant to be a more affordable alternative to a very good MFA program.
Okay.
So many of my teachers, and I taught at NYU for many years, teach at other universities, NYU, Pace, other places, and also teach at my studio for a good deal less than you'd pay when you get a degree.
Right.
And unless you want a degree, which no production I know ever cared about, that's more like a backup plan, that's a good thing. So the tagline is training the passionate actor committed to excellence. So we want to meet people, and I want to know, it's a big relationship. Like, are we good for you, and are you good for us, and see if it's a fit. And if it's a fit, it's an important decision. So we want to have a lot of conversations before we go forward. So we're not trying to be a big factory. We're a smaller studio with a really, really committed group of folks of all shapes and sizes and colors. You know, like I have I have a guy who's a grandfather in my class, and I have a woman who's 19 in my class, and we're all working together and playing together because we love acting, we love storytelling, and we're committed to being the best actor we can be. That's an important goal. When I meet actors, one of my first questions would be, what are your goals? Kind of like a car salesman, say, what kind of car do you need? You know, do you have a big family, or do you need a smaller car, or whatever? And sadly, to me, the goal that I hear most often, and literally 90% of it, well, I'll see if you guess it, if you can tell me what it is.
Better?
No.
No?
That would be good.
Oh.
That's better. No, I want to be a working actor.
Oh.
That's the goal, which means they're saying, I want my paycheck to come from SAG-AFTRA instead of Starbucks.
Right.
There's no relationship to quality there, right?
Yeah.
That's like saying, I want to go to cooking school so I can work in a restaurant.
Right.
Right. And so I try and invite them to something that's more aspirational and say, how about, like, if you loved basketball and maybe Steph Curry at Golden State was your hero and you were good at basketball, and let's say you're 8 years old and you're good and he's your hero, what are your goals? You want to just play basketball for money?
Right.
And absolutely not, right? It's like, oh man, I want to be in the NBA. I don't want to be Steph, but I want to be my own version of the best ball player I could be so that I can be in the NBA finals. That would be Mecca, right?
Right.
Okay, if that's your goal, let's make that acting goal. Now so why are we here talking? Are you currently the best actor you can be? No. Okay, so what's not working? What do you need support with?
Right.
Because that 8 or 9-year-old, if they live in Iowa, maybe, are going to find coaches and have some sort of thing that might get them to college, but before that, high school. And if it's a crappy high school with a sports program, maybe their family's going to move them to another one. And maybe they're going to play in the summer. They're going to really be all in if that's their thing, if they love that. So that's where training comes in, related to a goal, because no one wants to go to acting school. No one wants to go to medical school. They want to be doctors.
Yeah.
But you have to train, for the most part. Talent is what you're born with. And then the training, Lee Strasberg had an interesting thing. He said, technique is like aspirin. You keep it in your medicine chest and you take it when you have a headache. So some parts, I'm sure you've experienced this, you can pick up the script and go, I got this.
Yes.
And you don't have to like reverse engineer it and go, what's my action? What's my objective?
Yes.
Because it's just, you get it.
Yeah.
That's rare. But when that happens, that's a blessing. And if it doesn't, that's where training supports you to go, okay, I know the questions to ask.
And so your school is all a conservatory? There's no regular classes? And how long is the conservatory? Is it like a 6-month or a 2-year?
It's 2 years. If you start in January, you can do it in a year and a half with the same amount of classes. So we have a 2-year program, and we have intensive. So we have a summer intensive that's going to start June 10th. And goes through the end of July. What did you mean by conservatory versus regular classes?
Well, a regular class is like most acting classes.
Like an ongoing class.
Like an ongoing scene study class or something.
I don't have
like
that. We do a couple times a year, like a 5-week scene class with either me, or I have a wonderful teacher who also runs the Meisner program at NYU, Nate Flower, and he's a great teacher. And so people will bring in scenes and they'll work on one scene for like 5 weeks.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's really good.
And then I have my road show. As I said, I was just in Atlanta, and a couple weeks before that I was in LA, and a couple weeks before that I was in Vancouver.
Oh, no, that's where I'm from.
Really?
Yeah. I grew up in Vancouver.
I love that town.
It's good to visit.
I mean, yeah, I guess it gets small.
Yeah,
but Canadians are very friendly.
Yeah, they are. It's Vancouver's. I mean, British Columbia, the province in general, is one of the most beautiful places ever.
Yeah.
Like in the summer, though.
Yeah.
If you visit in the summer, because it rains.
Yes. Yeah. It is raining.
It rains every single day in Vancouver, which is the thing that sucks about it. But They shoot a lot there.
Yeah, that's why there are a lot of actors. And the actors are really hungry for the work.
Yeah,
that was great.
They are. I mean, a lot of Canadian actors. I have my friends just moved from Toronto to LA. They were working a lot in Toronto, but for some reason they don't care. In America, we don't care about your Canadian credits apparently.
Yeah,
and they have like a gazillion credits from a million movies over there, and then they come here and it's almost like starting from scratch, which is quite bizarre.
Yeah.
The conservatory field. Do you think that are the actors all staying together in one place, or they're not all living together somewhere? Is that something like a?
That'd be fun. No, no. Most, we're in Brooklyn, and that was intentional. There's really, you don't think of Brooklyn as a place to train, but I live in Brooklyn, and I think Brooklyn has different energy than Manhattan. I lived in East Village. I lived on 6th Street between 1st and 2nd for 20 years. So this area was my home for a long time, but I wanted to distinguish my studio. And there's something gritty and DIY about Brooklyn, and maybe even a bit younger in a certain way, and less touristy. So, no, they don't live together. But most people end up moving to Brooklyn. Some people commute from like Washington Heights or other parts of Manhattan or Queens, Astoria, even New Jersey. And they come to class. Acting classes meet twice a week for 3.5, 4 hours a class. We have wonderful movement classes. Those meet twice a week for 2 hours a class. Voice, Linkletter voice. And this is where Larry and I are so aligned, Larry Moss, because he's always talking about writers and he's always talking about the voice. And I did find that in, the places I just named, Vancouver and Atlanta are very similar. Sorry, my phone is beeping.
That's okay.
I want to turn it off. So, sorry about that.
That's okay.
So these are places where people do a lot of shooting. It's all about the career. It's all about booking. They have mics. So their voices is what Larry would call faux naturalism. I'm sure, it's a, hey, how you doing?
Yeah.
You want to go get some food at the deli? And it's like, there's no vibration.
Yeah.
And you take an actor like Denzel Washington or Viola Davis or Sam Rockwell, Bradley Cooper, Frances McDormand, wonderful film and television actresses who come from the theater and go back to the theater and have rich, resonant voices. And even when they're in a movie, there's something about the vibrational quality of their voice that's powerful.
Yeah.
And they're not like, the sound guy's not going, whoa, turn it down. They're not trying to do theater acting in an intimate scene, but there's something vibrational in their use of language, consonants and things like that, vowels. So I really push voice training, and that's part of my religion. And then we have other things. We have incredible clown classes, which kind of, not to join the circus, but to...
It's become very popular, by the way.
It's amazing. And it really returns you to this little one in you and makes you very free and willing to take crazy risks and stuff like that, which then when you get with a Pinter script or something like that, it's juicier. Yeah.
Do you approach... I mean, this might be a weird, but do you approach the training differently for somebody that's, doing a play or somebody that's doing a film? Or
I don't.
You don't?
The training, I think, is, Daniel Craig is a conservatory trained actor from England. Sam Rockwell did the 2 years here. Meryl Streep went to Yale. Our very best actors are conservatory trained. They don't go to a film acting school. Cate Blanchett didn't go to film acting school. There is something to learn, as I'm sure you understand. The framing is different. Theater acting, you're kind of putting it out there. Film acting, it kind of comes to you in a certain way. You have to really understand the frame. You have to understand the pace of a film shoot and how to kind of save your stuff for the close-ups.
Yes.
And how to shoot out of sequence. And, on the first day, you might be doing the hardest scene in the movie, and it's all organized by location. So if you've got 5 scenes in the film, that all take place in the office. They'll get those all done, and all that's done for very efficient ways. So you have to learn how to organize yourself. But the acting, these ideas of like, what am I doing? What does everything mean? I've coached Sam for 3 Broadway plays and a couple others and all these other movies. No different. He understands how to create the behavior differently for a movie than for theater, but the training is the same and the vocabulary is the same.
How important, I was watching, I go to the Lincoln Center Library almost every week, and I just go and watch. I can't believe people don't do this more often.
They should.
It's just, you can just go watch anything.
Free.
It's free. You can just walk in and watch plays.
Yeah.
And so I go in and I watch a lot of stuff. I was recently, actually, speaking of Long Day's Journey Tonight, I walked in and I watched the one with Jessica Lange, and her voice, it's so incredible to see somebody like her use her voice the way it does, because it'll go up and then it'll come down, and then it's almost like her voice is a separate character.
It's a musical instrument.
The way she uses it in all these different ways, but it's also effortless. You don't feel like, oh, she's trying to do something with her voice or anything like that. It just happens so naturally for her. Do you think the best actors are people that have been working on their voice for a long time?
I think so.
Yeah.
And I notice it when they don't have voices, for sure.
Is it just because they're not projecting, or they?
It's not about projection. It's two things. I think it's an appreciation of language, which kind of ties to the idea of writers, because there's not really great language in most film and television. A few exceptions, Martin McDonagh being one of them. But he's a theater writer as well. Yeah. Speaking of Colin Farrell. So one is just an appreciation of language. And so I see that now working with Daniel on Benoit Blanc. I did Knives Out 2, and now we're doing 3. Ryan Johnson, who wrote and directed these movies, the script is tight. It's gorgeous.
Nice.
And it's so well written. It's so smartly written. And Benoit, his character, this Southern detective, is very flowery, speaker. And he's got all this language. And when you can start to really land those things, and as a theater-trained actor who can do Iago or the Scottish play, he's got the chops. I mean, Frances McDormand went into 3 Billboards, which she won the Oscar for, and Sam won the Oscar for. He won Best Supporting Actor, and she won Best Actress. She'd just done Lady Macbeth in San Francisco, what later became a film that she did with Denzel, but Denzel wasn't in the San Francisco production. And she said to me at the opening night party, or the premiere of 3 Billboards, and I think she's an amazing actress, 3 Billboards for her was a piece of cake after working on Shakespeare. So when you have the chops to work on, if you work on Long Day's Journey into Night, I mean, that's a marathon.
Yes.
Or Denzel did
Iceman
Cometh, which, on Broadway, which is a huge undertaking, Hickey in that play. So he does that, and then he goes into The Equalizer. I mean, that's not so hard. Or did Fences on Broadway. So I do think it's an appreciation of language, but also, which is the speech part. And then the voice part is kind of vibration and really understanding how sound gets created in the body, and really understanding anatomy.
Yeah.
Oh, that's my hard palate. That's my soft palate. That's my tongue. These are my ribs. What is a full breath?
Yeah.
Most people don't take a full breath.
Yeah.
What's a belly breath? What's a breath that expands my back ribs?
Yeah.
And when you start, and it's boring. Speech and voice work is not necessarily interesting. But when you do it, and you do it regularly, it makes so much difference.
I never realized how little, I was breathing for a while until I would work with Larry, and Larry's like, breathe. I'm like, what? I was like, oh, he's right. I'm not actually taking a breath because you're up there and you're nervous and all this stuff's happening and your body is like, your nervous system is doing all these things to you.
You're freaking out.
And you're forgetting to breathe. So all of a sudden you take a breath. I read somewhere that you were mentioning something about music and the musicality of things, and then you talked about the dialects and stuff. Dialect work is very, very interesting and very, very difficult. Some people are very great at doing dialects. They just pick them up really, really quick.
Yeah.
Speaking of Martin McDonagh, let's say, I was in class and I was working on The Lonesome West, I think.
Did you do the scene with Gurleen?
No, I did the two brothers after the funeral.
Coleman,
they come home,
and Valine,
Coleman and Valine, and when they come home from the Father Welsh's funeral, and then they have that huge fight, and then they take out the knife and all this kind of crazy things happen in there. And I went to dialect class for a month, and religiously went, and I thought my Irish accent was great. And then I came to class, and it was another time that it was an eye-opening moment for me when I was told that my accent was technically good, but I was missing the musicality of the Irish accent, which is the high. They go very high up, and then they come down, and there is a musicality to it that I just did not have. And that takes a lot of time to be able to build up and do. How do actors get it so quickly, some of them? I mean, I did it for a month and I was nowhere near being able to get it.
Were you working one-on-one?
I was, yeah. And then I was going home. I mean, I took it pretty serious. I was listening to stuff. I had stuff in my ears. I watched. There's a short film of McDonagh's called Six Shooter, I think. It's on YouTube.
Yeah, Brendan Gleeson, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. He's in a lot of his stuff, right? Yeah. It's like this kid on the train. The kid in that film is sensational. Really, really amazing actor. So I was listening to that stuff. I don't know. You said you like dialects, so I'm wondering if you have some insight on that.
Well, a dialect is the sound of a place, but places also have culture, right? And so if you just get the sound without the culture, I'm thinking about the Dominican Republic right now, and a place I visit sometimes in the north of the Dominican Republic. And it's just it's such a sexual place, like just street life. There's the daily banter with the bachata music in the background, and just the way people go to the market. It's like they're in this dance of flirtation that's just normal for them. I would say very different from like Copenhagen or something like that. And so if you can't understand the dance of it and the musicality of it, then it is going to sound technical. And so I think it's great because all a dialect is sound substitution. Like in a Dublin, there's no such thing as an Irish dialect, but a Dublin accent versus a Galway or a Cork or whatever. The diphthong I, like I, right, my, becomes oi. So you can, with a script, just go through and phonetically mark it. Oi, I was walking and it was a bright time. Right. Surely it was. But if you also don't have the sense of how people talk to each other, which you'd get by hanging out in a pub or having a family member or whatever, you know, then it will be like a Martian in a way, learning how to speak English, but it's AI, you know. So that's when the humanity of it comes in, and, you know, what's it like to play a Dominican versus a Puerto Rican, because they're different. Right. You know.
Yeah, the Nuyorican accent is quite difficult. Which is a lot of the stuff that for like Gergis's plays, the Nuyorican thing is very, very difficult. The building I was living in Brooklyn. I used to live in Brooklyn, and I brought the door guy into my apartment.
Yeah.
To help me with it, because he was New Rican, and he's like, no, you don't got it.
That's great. Sam has done stuff where he's asked people from different parts of the world. Sometimes Sam plays real people, and like he played a reporter and for the Washington Post, and so he went and asked them to record his lines. And when he did Conviction, which is a true story, the guy he played was dead, but he asked his sister to read some of the lines. And so Sam will do that sometimes and just say, hey, just like, say these, they're from Kansas, say there's a Kansas part, say these lines. And he also works with a really good dialect coach.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, any classes, you said the conservatories are coming up in July?
In June.
In June.
So, yeah, thank you. Because, it's old-fashioned to study right now. The road to success, depending on what you think success in acting is, if you think success in acting is a job, you don't need to train.
Right.
You can network. Like in these places like Vancouver and Atlanta, the classes that sell the most are like how to be on camera, how to audition, how to self-tape. It's all about booking.
Yeah.
With what, I would say, right? So keeping, we have a brick and mortar space in Brooklyn. It's lovely in Industry City, which is one express stop away from Atlantic Barclays. And we have a great summer intensive. I'm going to be teaching 2 sections of it, a morning and an afternoon. The morning's sold out. The afternoon is still got some spots. And there's some other wonderful teachers, like if someone needs a night class, we have a night class. And you can take movement, you can take voice. That starts June 10th till the end of July.
Okay.
And then the other thing we do that we're also enrolling for right now is our 2-year conservatory, which starts in September. Yeah. It's a great place.
Yeah. I'm going to put the link and everything.
Thank you so much.
In the bio. Any advice to actors listening? Just a nice little tidbit that maybe you've learned over the years, or something that they can keep in their pocket. Something.
I hope you love it. I hope you really love acting, because it's a hard business to be in. And if you consider an audition your performance, then you had a great day. Like if the audition is the performance rather than trying to get a job to perform, then you got to go in, do some moments, and you left it out there. And if you keep doing good work, I do believe that you'll win. And don't try to be like anybody else. Really cultivate your own originality. Don't be a copy of Sean Penn or somebody else. They've already got a Sean Penn. Brando did this movie once. He really revolutionized American acting. And he did a movie, you've probably seen the poster. He played a tough guy on a motorcycle. And he had these cigarettes rolled up in his T-shirt sleeve.
Was it?
I think it was The Wild Ones.
Yeah, The Wild Ones. Yeah.
So all of a sudden, all these guys were showing up in New York auditions looking like Brando with cigarettes. And it's like, no, they're not. If they want to hire Brando, they'll hire Brando. So you be you. Yeah. And I do believe in training. I think training wherever you are, get good training. And if the teacher feels weird, run. But the main thing is like love it and don't worry about the job. Just put good work out there and have fun. If you can stay loose and have fun and keep the play in it, because it's a play, that's cool. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Terry Knickerbocker, thank you for coming. It was really, really wonderful.
My
I really
pleasure
appreciate
to meet
it.
you. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.